From the quiet diesel-electric submarines hidden beneath the ocean to the massive aircraft carriers that blanketed the battlefield sky, this is the complete catalog of the United States Navy in World War II. It was not built from steel, guns, and engines alone. This was a war machine forged from industry, doctrine, and a scale never before seen in human history. The backbone of naval warfare at sea was the Essex class, with a displacement of roughly 27,000 tons and the ability to carry nearly 100 aircraft. Essex-class carriers generated air groups with strategic striking power. Deck edge elevators, relentless flight deck tempo, and layered anti-aircraft defenses meant they were built to survive inside the very heart of aerial hell. Before Essex came the Yorktown class, America's pre-war fleet carrier standard. Fast and flexible, with open hangar decks that allowed engines to warm up just beneath the flight deck, Yorktown laid the foundation for U.S. carrier warfare doctrine. Earlier still was the Lexington class, converted battlecruisers that carried the unmistakable imprint of an era in transition. Turbo-electric propulsion, towering funnels, and 8-inch 203mm guns for surface fighting reflected a time when the aircraft carrier had not yet fully escaped the shadow of the traditional warship. The next turning point was USS Ranger, the first U.S. carrier designed from the keel up for the role. Small, slow, and lightly armored, Ranger traded protection for one priority: maximizing aircraft capacity on a limited haul. To meet the urgent demands of war, the Navy created the Independence class. High-speed, light carriers rushed into service on modified Cleveland-class light cruiser hulls. With short decks and tight internal volume, they still carried powerful engines that allowed them to keep pace with the fast carrier task forces in the Pacific. Their mission was clear: supplement air groups and thicken the fleet's striking power at decisive moments. Developed later, the Saipan class represented a heavy evolution of the light carrier concept, built with longer-term thinking. Based on Baltimore-class heavy cruiser hulls, they featured stronger flight decks and the ability to operate larger, heavier late-war aircraft. Saipan reflected the transition from wartime light carriers to post-war naval aviation doctrine. On the mass production scale, the Casablanca class became a symbol of America's wartime industrial power. Built by the dozens, faster than combat losses could erase them, Casablanca carriers were slow, lightly armored, and unsuited for direct fights against major enemy forces. But at amphibious landings and close air support missions, they appeared exactly when needed, delivering timely air superiority over the battlefield ashore. In parallel, the Bogue class was shaped primarily for anti-submarine warfare in the Atlantic, carrying ASW patrol aircraft, radar, and U-boat hunting weapons. They operated as persistent hunters along lifeline shipping routes. They were not glamorous, but Bogue-class escort carriers helped keep the transatlantic flow of supplies from being strangled. To sustain pilot quality at scale, the Navy relied on specialized training carriers. USS Wolverine was the first, operating entirely on Lake Michigan, an environment completely safe from enemy submarines. Converted from a paddle-wheel steamer, Wolverine never carried combat aircraft into battle. Its sole purpose was training carrier landings. Thousands of naval aviators made their first deck landings here before facing real war at sea. Following it, USS Sable entered service to expand training capacity during the wartime peak. Like Wolverine, Sable operated on Lake Michigan and served as a safe deck for high-intensity training cycles. The experience gained on Sable directly improved survival rates and combat performance for U.S. naval pilots on distant fronts. Even as carriers dominated the sky, battleships still mattered. USS Utah stands as a unique case in U.S. naval history. After being demilitarized under treaty limits, the ship was converted into a radio-controlled target for bombing and naval attack training, marking the moment when the battleship shifted from a symbol of power to a training tool for the carrier age. Between battleships and destroyers stood the cruisers. The Alaska class was built to counter enemy heavy cruisers and pocket battleships. With guns larger than standard cruisers and high speed, they were specialized hunters, though their late arrival limited their real wartime impact. Meanwhile, the Baltimore class became the standard of American heavy cruisers, with 9 8-inch 203mm guns, modern radar, and dense anti-aircraft batteries able to strike surface targets while shielding the fleet from air attack. On the outer screen were the destroyers. The Fletcher class is widely regarded as the most balanced U.S. destroyer of World War II, carrying guns, torpedoes, sonar, radar, and long range, capable of escort, anti-submarine warfare, and night attacks. The Sumner, Benson, Gleaves, and Mahan classes continued refining U.S. destroyer doctrine, becoming the most present, most active, and most heavily sacrificed force in the naval war. Below the surface, the Gatto-class submarines opened a war of strategic attrition across the Pacific. With long range and strong torpedo firepower, Gatto boats hunted Japan's vital supply lines, steadily choking enemy logistics. The improved Belau class, with a stronger pressure hull and deeper diving capability, became the most effective silent killer of the late war. Along the coasts, PT boats, small, fast, and dangerous, launched sudden night raids that kept enemy shorelines and narrow sea lanes under constant threat. In the Atlantic, destroyer escorts quietly protected convoys from U-boats, helping deliver the decisive edge in a survival struggle against German submarines. In the end, the war could only move on to land through amphibious force. LST tank carried tanks, vehicles, and troops directly from sea to sand, with bow doors and a flat bottom built for beaching. LCVP Higgins boats ferried infantry from offshore transports through heavy fire in the most dangerous opening minutes. Unarmored and unglamorous, the LCVP still became an enduring symbol of Allied amphibious assault.